Hello everyone, I'm John with JP Strategic Investments, and today I'm going to go over everything you need to know about Rocket's special one-time dividend. There's been a lot of posts about this and how it will affect short sellers and other things like that, and a lot of them are not completely accurate, and some of them are just plain wrong. So I want to clear this up for everyone, and with that said, let's dive right in. So first I just want to cover the general details of the dividend. It will be a one-time dividend of $1.11 per share. Now there are 3 dates that investors should be aware of relating to this dividend, and those dates are the record date, the ex-dividend date, and the payment date. Contrary to popular belief, the record date is not actually the date that you need to own the shares by to be eligible for the dividend. It's really just an accounting date for the company and brokers. The ex-dividend date is actually the date that's important to know for dividend eligibility. Generally, the ex-dividend date is 1 business day before the record date, and investors who buy the stock on or after the ex-dividend date are not eligible to receive the dividend. Now, as far as I can tell, Rocket has not announced a specific ex-dividend date, but if they follow this practice, then the ex-dividend date would be on Monday, March 8th, which would be the day before the record date on Tuesday, March 9th. This means that to be eligible for the dividend, you would actually have to buy the stock by Friday, March 5th. Then, once all of the shareholders are recorded after the close of business on March 9th, the company can start the process of dividing and distributing the money to brokers, which they will eventually give to the actual shareholders. So this also means that for most dividends, if you sell the stock after the record date but before the payment date, you're still eligible to receive the dividend. So now let's get into which shares the dividend will actually be paid to. As I said in my earnings review video, while the press release did state that the dividend will be paid out to Class A shareholders, Julie Booth, Rocket's CFO, did clarify in the earnings call that the dividend will be paid out based on economic interest, and that this means that RHI and Dan Gilbert will also be receiving the dividend because of the holding units they own. Remember that the earnings we see are the entire earnings of RKT Holdings. Rocket Companies currently only has about an 8% ownership in RKT Holdings, and the rest is owned by RHI and Dan Gilbert. This is also why the distribution for the dividend is around $2.2 billion. If this is getting confusing, I did a video recently explaining the whole structure of the company and the different share classes in detail, so I definitely recommend watching that video. So now that we understand that, let's get into how this will actually affect short sellers. There's been a lot of people posting that short sellers are responsible to pay the dividend on the shares that they are shorting, although this does not mean that the company does not have to pay this portion of the dividend. All it means is that because shorts are technically borrowing the shares, then they will owe the dividend to the actual owner of those shares. That being said, this won't actually hurt shorts as much as people think it will. And this is because of the price action that occurs on the ex-dividend date. Because the dividend is taken from the company's earnings, and investors who buy the stock on or after the ex-dividend date are not entitled to that portion of the earnings, the stock will generally open down in roughly the same amount of the dividend on the ex-dividend date to account for this. Another way to think about this is that if a stock currently trades at a certain PE ratio, and you were to remove a portion of their earnings, then the stock price would have to drop accordingly to maintain that same PE ratio. This means that while short sellers will be on the hook to pay the dividends for the shares that they short, the stock price will also drop by that same amount at open on the ex-dividend date, essentially canceling out the loss from the dividend. Now, obviously the stock could go right back up to where it was trading before, even within minutes, but that would take a lot more buying pressure to get the stock back up to that price. Regardless though, the price action will take place with the stock, meaning that the dividend will likely have little to no effect on short sellers' net gain or loss. One more thing to know about the dividend and the ex-dividend date for any of you guys out there with good until canceled orders is that they will automatically be reduced by the amount of the dividend on the ex-dividend date. This means that if the stock is trading at $25 before the ex-dividend, and you put in a good until canceled order to buy shares at $24, your order will automatically be reduced by the $1.11 dividend amount on the ex-dividend date and become an order to buy at $22.89. So even though the stock will likely open at around $23.89, your order will not get filled. This is definitely something you want to be aware of if you're placing any orders like this. I hope you guys found all of this information helpful, and if you did, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, be sure to share this with any Rocket shareholders you know, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Other than that, see you next time, and have a great day.